Hello, puppies and kittens. Welcome to another episode of Blasphemers Bible. Lawrence, I got a question for you.
Great. All right.
Yeah, when we did Genesis 3, I didn't have you or Tomer on the show, so I was wanting to get some commentary on that. I've asked a handful of other Bible scholars on this question. The serpent in the garden.
Yeah.
Was that Satan?
No.
Yes.
It's Satan according to Christians.
Kinda.
How kinda?
I mean, the idea that the serpent was Satan appeared before Christianity arose. I think, from what I found,
It was in the life of Adam and Eve, that's for sure.
Yeah, but it also possibly in the wisdom of Solomon as well. Though it's a bit iffy, but still could be. There is also, if I remember correctly, Third Baruch, Life of Adam and Eve, as you said it. First and Second Enoch also suggests that he was an angel, apparently. And there was another one. Oh, Apocalypse. No, that's the same thing actually. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to like rabbinic sources, you have also talk of Pseudo Jonathan, because of Ezra, but that's like way later.
Guys, we all know it was me.
The thing is, the point is, it's a much later analysis. They're like rereading back into it. Satan.
Yeah. No one's mythological, but representation of different things, but not necessarily. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm making a video about that right now, and I included. I've got commentary from Bart Ehrman, from Kip Davis, and Joshua Bowen, and I just needed to make sure that I got that one word answer out of Lawrence.
Before we begin, Aaron, what is your favorite beer?
Right now, it's Black Tuesday.
Well, I have some news for you, because I have one of your most favorite beers that you really, really like. It's an Indian Pale Ale. Yeah.
I'll
It's
get my
free,
crop.
so
Yeah. All right, we're gonna get on to what is it? Second Chronicles, rule number 34.
Oh God!
Only if you say hello to my cat first will we continue.
Oh baby! Oh.
Hello, P word.
Unfortunately, we can never continue as he cannot hear you.
It's kind of fitting to start Rule 34 with Lawrence showing his pussy.
I wanted to say it. I implied that, but like you.
Yeah. All right. So, getting on to 34.
Yeah.
Josiah was 8 years old when he became king.
Maybe we shouldn't use Rule 34.
Yeah.
Not the moment for Rule 34.
Yeah.
And he reigned in Jerusalem 31 years. He did what was right in the eyes of the Lord and followed the ways of his father David, not turning aside to the right or the left. I like how they say do what's right in the eyes of, or you don't do what's right in the eyes of the, and they don't tell you exactly what that is.
I thought we established it. It was doing everything the priest said, giving them lots of money, and genociding as many people as don't agree with you as possible.
Okay. In the 8th year of his reign, while he was still young, he began to seek the God of his father David. In his 12th year, he began to purge Judah and Jerusalem of high places, Asherah poles, and idols. Gosh, there's a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
Under his direction, the altars of the Baals were torn down. He cut to pieces the incense altars that were above them and smashed the Asherah poles and the idols. These he broke to pieces and scattered over the graves of those who had sacrificed to them. He burned the poles of the priests of the altars, and he purged Judah and Jerusalem, because nothing says loving father figure like killing everybody you're jealous of.
I know that feeling.
In the towns of Manasseh, Ephraim, and Simeon, as far as Naphtali, and in the ruins around them. He tore down the altars and Asherah poles and crushed the idols to powder and cut to pieces all the incense altars throughout Israel. Then he went back to Jerusalem, because that's the most important thing. Just
Absolutely.
not real life. But
No.
yeah.
No.
In the 18th year of Josiah's reign, to purify the land and the temple, he sent Shaphan, son of Aliziah, and
Atalia.
Maaseiah. How do you say that, Tomer?
Maasiyahu.
What?
Ma'a si Yahu.
Yeah, but
Oh,
the English version
Just-
doesn't have the Yahoo at the end, so just
Yeah.
Maaseiah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does that Aya thing.
Okay, so Maaseiah Yuhu. Okay, anyway. The ruler of the city with
That was okay.
Just
Yeah,
let
also
him, Lawrence,
Tomer,
let him.
Tomer, the Hebrew is also, you said it wrong. It's Maasei Yahoo, not Ma.
Mathe, yeah, it's a thla.
Mahaseh?
like-
Say, and you said C. That's the difference.
Matse.
Not
Oh no,
Yahoo, it's Seyahu.
no, I thought you wanted to go back to the ancient Hebrew pronunciation with the size the thla sound.
Sha.
Thla.
Sha.
So it's going to be Ma'asayao.
Okay.
Go on.
Maaseiah.
Just,
Okay, whatever.
just, yeah.
The ruler of the city with Joan, son of Joaz. Joahaz.
Oh my
Joahaz.
God. Sorry, it's in Hebrew it's Yoach. So I don't
What?
I have no
Achaz.
Yoach.
Just read
No.
it in the English way. It's fine.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
son of Joahaz the recorder, to repair the temple of the Lord his God. They went to Hilkiah, the high priest, and gave him the money that had been brought into the temple of God, which the Levites were the gatekeepers and collected from, which the Levites, who were the gatekeepers, had collected from the people of Manasseh, Ephraim, and the entire remnant of Israel, and from all the people of Judah and Benjamin and the inhabitants of Jerusalem. Then they entrusted them to the men appointed to supervise the work of the Lord's temple. These men paid the workers who repaired and restored the temple. They also gave money to the carpenters and builders to purchase dressed stone and timber for joists and beams for the buildings that the kings of Judah had allowed to fall into ruin. The workers labored faithfully. Over them to direct them were Jahath and Obadiah, Levites descended from Merari and Zechariah, and Meshulam descended from Kohath. The Levites, who were skilled in playing musical instruments, had charge of the laborers and supervised all the workers from job to job, because that's what musicians do.
Yeah.
Some of the Levites were secretaries, scribes, and gatekeepers. While they were bringing out the money that had been taken from the temple of the Lord, Hilkiah the priest found the book of the law of the Lord that had been given through Moses. Hilkiah said to Shaphan the secretary, "I have found the book of the law of the temple of the Lord." He gave it to Shaphan. Then Shaphan took the book to the king and reported to him, "Your officials are doing everything that has been committed to them. They have paid out money that was in the temple of the Lord and have entrusted it to supervisors and workers." Then Shaphan the secretary informed the king, "Hilkiah the priest has given me a book." And Shaphan read from it in the presence of the king. When the king heard the words of the law, he tore his robes. He gave these orders to Hilkiah, Ahikam, and son of Shaphan, Abdon, son of Micah. Shaphan, the secretary of Asa, was the king's assistant. "Go and inquire the Lord for me, because I don't know how to pray, and for the remnant of Israel and Judah about what is written in the book, what is written in this book that has been found. Great is the Lord's anger that is poured out on us, that because those who have gone before us have not kept the word of the Lord. They have not acted in accordance with all that is written in this book." Hilkiah and those the king sent with him went to speak to the prophet Huldah, who was the wife of Shallum, son of Tokath, the son of
female
Hazra,
prophet.
keeper of the wardrobe. She lived in Jerusalem in the new quarter. She said to them, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel says. Tell the man who sent you to me, this is what the Lord says. I am going to bring disaster on this place and its people. All the curses written in the book that has been read in the presence of the king of Judah, because they have forsaken me and burned incense to other gods and aroused my anger by all that their hands have made. My anger will be poured out of this place and will not be quenched. Tell the king of Judah, who sent you to inquire of the Lord, this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says concerning the words you heard. Because your heart was responsive and you humbled yourself before God when you heard what he spoke against this place and its people, and because you humbled yourself before me and tore your robes and wept in my presence, I have heard you, declares the Lord. Now, I will gather you to your ancestors, and you will be buried in peace. Your eyes will not see all the disaster I am going to bring on this place and those who live here." Okay, so let me. Oh no, we got more. Okay, so they took her answer back to the king. Then the king called together all the elders of Judah and Jerusalem. He went up to the temple of the Lord with the people of Judah, the inhabitants of Jerusalem, the priests and the Levites, all the people from the least to the greatest. He read in their hearing all the words of the book of the covenant, which had been found in the temple of the Lord. The king stood by his pillar and renewed the covenant in the presence of the Lord, to follow the Lord and keep his commands, statutes, and decrees with all his heart and soul, and to obey, because that's what this whole thing is about, the words of the covenant written in the book. Then he had everyone in Jerusalem and Benjamin pledge themselves to it. The people of Jerusalem did this in accordance with the covenant of God, the God of their ancestors. Josiah removed all the detestable idols from all the territory belonging to the Israelites, and he had all who were present in Israel serve the Lord their God. As long as he lived, they did not fail to follow the Lord, the God of their ancestors. Once again, we have one book, God's message to humanity. This chapter didn't need to be in it.
Well, in fairness, it is a retelling of the same story we've seen elsewhere. And it's also, as we pointed out previously, this is pretty much the book of Deuteronomy. Lawrence will be back to clarify. But yeah, this book of the law that they find, maybe his cat stepped on the internet cord. It's fine. He'll be back. But as I was saying, this book of the law that they found is basically Deuteronomy. And as we noticed at the end of Deuteronomy, they go through their version of the law, and then they say, and then all the people before they go into the promised land renew the covenant. So we go through this renewing the covenant on the basis of the narrative that this is something that's happened before and we need to re-engage with it. Yeah, you're back. I was just talking about how basically this is the story of finding Deuteronomy and inducing people to renew a covenant and so on and so forth. But which, I mean, you can get them to do anything if you're like, and this is our ancestral truth. It totally real, much real, very belief.
Yeah. It's very easy. They're like, this isn't me saying it.
Yeah.
This is this other guy this is our ancestor saying it. So you gotta.
Yeah, our ancestors all did this, and we have to renew. I mean, it's a lot of excuses and post hoc rationalization for why their war god was so incredibly, such an incredible failure as a war god. But
I will say it's probably like a pre-canonical form of the Book of Deuteronomy, according to Klein at least. But for the chronicler, it is the Pentateuch, as was given by Moses.
Oh, for the chronicler, yeah. But from our perspective, we're looking at basically Deuteronomy. And when I say basically, it's undergone some modification, but of the books of the Pentateuch, I think Deuteronomy has probably had one of the least overall adaptations. I mean, Genesis is just a freaking patchwork of a patchwork of a patchwork. But there have been some adaptations and things in Deuteronomy, but not really a lot as these things go.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, according to Klein, there are some theological issues in the County of Kings that he had to deal with, and had to change some stuff in it to resolve them. For instance, evil had persisted through the long reign of Manasseh, the short reign of Ammon, and the first 17 years of the reign of Josiah. Why then was Josiah spared for so long, since he did not take action against cultic corruption for nearly half his reign, etc., etc. So he writes that these theological observations led to a number of changes in Chronicles. In the Chronicles accounts, Josiah did not wait until his 18th year to begin his reform, but began to seek Yahweh in the 8th year, and by his 12th year undertook extensive reforms, etc., etc. So yeah,
I mean, and that is a little questionable because, like, yeah, okay, a 16-year-old might have a little trouble, tearing down, because he starts when he's 8. So he's literally just a puppet for the priestly powers. And so, yeah, he's going to go and tear down the whatever. I mean, sure, probably he signed off on it. It wasn't that hard to get him to do that. But yeah, all of this is very narrative driven, very how much, what's in line with the theology of whoever's editing this particular piece. That version doesn't work for us, so we adapt it.
Oh, there is actually something interesting to note. So regarding the identification of the book that was found, quote unquote. So according to Levin, at least, there are some scholars who suggested that it was something different. For example, Lundbem argued that the Torah of Moses that was discovered was actually the Song of Moses in Deuteronomy 32. Bendov, without actually defining its content, has suggested that in the original story of 2 Kings 22 and 23, the book of the Torah was understood as a divine oracle sent to legitimize the king's actions, and as such is part of a well-attested genre in ancient Near Eastern literature. Only in the later redaction of the Deuteronomistic history was this understood as a comprehensive law book, etc., etc. Yeah, but I think the majority will think that this is an early version of Deuteronomy.
Yeah, definitely an early version, but yeah.
Basically every person agrees on that. Like at least Deuteronomy 12 through 25.
Yeah, the law sections, I guess.
Yeah, the early version, not the.
Though do notice that he said that the chronicler ascribes it to Moses, but in the accounts of Kings 22 and 23, it doesn't specify. It just says the book of the Torah. It doesn't refer to Moses there.
So the chronicler felt the need to specify that it was the book of the law of Moses.
Yeah.
Whereas the author of Kings did not feel that need.
Yeah. Okay, so should I start the commentary? I don't see anything. Yeah.
What? You haven't started yet?
No, I haven't started yet, Iron. Okay. So we'll start with verse 3. In the 8th year of his reign, he began to seek the God of his father David. According to 2 Kings 22:3, Josiah began his reforms at age 18. But the chronicler indicates that Josiah began to seek God in the 8th year of his reign, at age 16. And at his 12th year of reign, i.e. age 20, he began to purify Judah and Jerusalem of idolatry. Levin writes that there is a large measure of logic behind the chronicler's sequence of events, whereas in Kings, Josiah's repairs appear out of nowhere, quote-unquote. He notes that Cross and Friedman tried to find a correlation between Josiah's 8th, 12th, and 18th years and the dissolution of Assyrian control of the reign, claiming that the material here was derived from one of the special sources of the chronicler. However, no such evidence for these sources exists. Japhet writes that the story of 2 Kings 22 and 23, presented the chronicler with severe theological problems, quote-unquote, namely that Josiah ruled for 17 years in sin and has not been punished. Thus, the chronicler rearranged the events, making Josiah pious from youth and taking action as soon as he became an adult. On verses 4 and 5, Levin notes that there are differences in the actions that Josiah is said to have performed in 2 Kings 23. The foreign altars were buried in the Kidron Valley and their ashes taken to Bethel. The ashes of Asherah were scattered over the tombs of the sons of the people, or the common people. The Bamot and the houses of the Kedashim are smashed, and the Tophet and the Bamot that were east of the city were defiled, and the horses were stopped, etc. In Chronicles, Josiah's actions were much less extreme. The altars of the Baalim were smashed before him. He cut down the Chamanim, and the Asherim, and the carved and cast images were broken, grinded, and scattered over the tombs of those who had sacrificed to them, etc. On verse 6, Simeon as far as Naphtali. Naphtali is generally taken to be the farthest tribal territory in the north, and Simeon residing south of Judah, as we see in Joshua 19:1-9 and 1 Chronicles 4:28-43, which suggests that Josiah filled out his territory as in the United Monarchy. This, however, is historically unlikely. Levin notes that Noth and Grint suggested that Simeonites were living in the northern hills or in the Jezreel Valley, with Reini suggesting that the reference is not to the tribe of Simeon, but to the city of Shimron in the northwestern Jezreel Valley. He writes, however, that in the present context, Simeon is meant as a tribal designation. On verse 8, 2 Kings 22:3 adds that Shaphan was the grandson of Meshulam, and that he was a scribe, which is mentioned in Chronicles only in verse 15. The account in Kings does not mention Maaseya and Yoach. Levin notes that Rudolph and Williamson proposed that these names were original and were dropped by Kings, but Klein suggested that these names are the chronicler's addition. Levin notes the existence of a bulla bearing the name Gamaliel, son of Shaphan. He writes, quote, "While absolute proof is impossible, the fact that all of these appear in contexts relating to the same period, that of the final few decades before the destruction of Jerusalem, and the fact that no other individual named Shaphan is mentioned in the Bible or in inscriptions from Israel or Judah from other periods, makes it very likely that they all refer to the same high-ranking official, whose sons were also members of the Jerusalem court and bureaucracy." On verses 12 and 13, Japhet comments, quote, "This chronistic addition takes as its point of departure 2 Kings 22:7b, quote, 'For they deal honestly,' end quote, and provides a broader record of the administration of the work, highlighting the role of the Levites as the supervisors of all its different aspects. They have the oversight of the work and serve as secretaries, clerks, and gatekeepers. The hierarchy is again clearly set. The upper charge and supervision is entrusted to 4 persons, 2 of Merari and 2 of Kohath, of quite common Levitical or other names. Beneath them is a larger body of Levites, who were over the porters and those who did the work. There are, however, several points of detail which must be clarified. Only 2 families of Levites are represented in the upper supervision, Merarites and Kohathites, mentioned in a reversed order relative to their traditional rank. If 2 other names of the Gershonites have fallen out, we have no way of restoring the omission. Note the rare designation, the sons of the Kohathites, repeated only in 2 Chronicles 20:19, clearly presenting them as an order. On verse 14, the book of the law of the Lord that had been given through Moses. 2 Kings 22:8 reads, "The book of the Torah," in Hebrew, Sefer HaTorah. The book mentioned in Kings is generally taken to be a pre-canonical form of Deuteronomy, and actually Pseudo-Rashi claims that the book found here is Deuteronomy, which is quite interesting. Japhet notes that in 2 Kings 22 and 23, this book is defined as the book of the Torah, or the book of the covenant, as we see in 2 Kings 23:2, but is never attributed to Moses, and is not called the Torah of Yahweh. The chronicler probably understood this book as the complete Pentateuch given through Moses. On verse 15, 2 Kings 22:8 states that Hilkiah gave the scroll to Shaphan, who read it, in Hebrew, Vayikra'ehu. Klein notes that this had led a number of commentators to conclude that for the chronicler, the book that was found was the complete Pentateuch. Japhet argued that the shorter text in Chronicles is more original, since this reading of the book in 2 Kings 22:8 has no consequences. She writes that Shaphan received the book from Hilkiah, but read it from the first time only when he met with Josiah. Klein takes the omission by the chronicler as intentional. On verse 20 and 21, Klein comments, quote, Josiah sent a delegation of 5 that included the high priest Hilkiah, the secretary Shaphan, and his son Achikam, Abdon's son of Micaiah, otherwise unknown, and the king's servant Asaiah to make an inquiry of Yahweh. The selection of such a high-powered group indicates with what seriousness Josiah took this inquiry. Their inquiry is to be for the king himself and those who are left in Israel and Judah. In 2 Kings 22:13, this inquiry is to be for the king himself, the people, and all Judah. While it is not clear how the people and all Judah relate to each other, the chronicler has added a concern for the remnant in North Israel. It is not so much that Josiah was double-checking the validity of the book, but interceding for himself and the people with the hope that Yahweh might turn from his punishment. The wrath that is poured out or kindled results from the ancestors who did not keep the word of Yahweh to act according to everything written in this book. In 2 Kings 22:13, the wrath is due to the ancestors not listening to the words of the book to act according to everything that is written about us. The chronicler has here adopted the Deuteronomistic conception of retribution, whereas generally he believes that a person is rewarded or punished during his own lifetime. On verses 22 through 28, Japhet notes that the parallel account of Hulda's prophecy in 2 Kings, as well as its summarizing reflects, present the chronicler with difficult theological problems. According to Kings, Manasseh was the evilest king out of the Judean kings, and Josiah was the best. The final balance should have favored Josiah, whose pious acts were much greater than Manasseh's acts. But Josiah's actions lacked the power to change the verdict imposed on Judah, and there was no chance for repentance. This lack of theological balance is probably the reason why a theodicy, which attempted to make sense of the exile, was eventually reconceived. Not only did Manasseh's sins cause the disaster, but also the cumulative sin of the people of Israel ever since the Exodus, in 2 Kings 21:15. She writes, quote, the chronicler cites this pericope almost literally, but his comprehensive reworking has taken away some of the edge of the literary and theological problems. In Chronicles, Josiah's reform does not follow the words of Huldah, but precedes them, the consequences of the book being only the making of the covenant and the celebrating of the Passover. The Deuteronomistic remarks of 2 Kings 23, 25, and 26, which compare Manasseh with Josiah, are omitted, as are other words of theodicy in 2 Kings 21:23. As for the death of Josiah in war, contrary to the prediction that he would die in peace in verse 28, the chronicler provides a different solution. Such a prediction assumes as a matter of course that Josiah would not commit any sin. Since, according to the chronicler's story, Josiah did sin, the prophecy could not have been fulfilled.
Good God. Oh. I do love this idea that they're going to just, build up the frustration of their sin until God has to take it all out on them. Aaron, you've been married for a while. When you or your wife build up a certain level of frustration over the years, do you just beat each other one time to get it all out? Or is that not a healthy relationship dynamic?
I was going to suggest that is not a healthy, yeah.
So, despite all the analogies to marriage, we should apparently not take God as good.
God constantly demonstrates that he has no concept of family values. It just doesn't.
Nope. Well,
it doesn't do anything that a loving parent would. He does everything that a loving parent would not do. Yeah.
Yeah. That's it's really kind of freaky when you're raised in it and you're told that you should look for someone who's like God, that God is the model of love that you should look for in a spouse. And it's like that's
no.
That's a red flag.
I do not want that. I deserve better.
Yeah. Yeah, dangerous, malignant narcissist.
Yeah, I cannot tell you how many Christian women get into abusive relationships because they took God as a model of love.
All right, are we moving? Yes?
No, I have one final comment, and that is 29 through 33. Actually, I think that's the the least number of interjections from you in this commentary. So on 29 through 33, Klein notes that the covenant Josiah enacted in these verses shows characteristic changes over against its Vorlage in 2 Kings 23, 1 through 3. The chronicler gives the Levites a role in this ceremony, and Josiah is given a stronger role, which is an addition to their Vorlage. He notes that David A. Glatgilad pointed out that after the oracle of Huldah, Josiah brought all the people into obedience to Yahweh, whereas his early reforms were primarily his personal initiative. Moreover, a prophetic oracle during two earlier reforms, those of Asa and Jehoshaphat, simulated a second heightened reform. These three kings ended their reigns on a negative note when they showed a lack of complete trust in Yahweh in their foreign policy, and were rebuked by prophetic figures. Klein further writes, quote, in chapter 34, the king reacted to Huldah's prophecy by making a covenant in verses 31 and 32, which enjoined the people to obedience. Then in verse 33, the final verse in this chapter, he removed all the abominations from the lands belonging to the Israelites and made all who were present in Jerusalem serve Yahweh their God. Thus, the second phase of Josiah's reform has strong participation by the entire people. The chronicler does not have the elaborate reform narrative that follows the covenant ceremony in 2 Kings 23 verses 4 through 20 and 24. In the second half of verse 33, in addition to the Vorlage, the chronicler notes that the people did not turn away from Yahweh throughout the reign of Josiah. End quote.
So what I get out of this is, and Hilkijab, son of Mophelthach, who found a book and gave it to the king, and the king said, "You have given me a book," and he read it, and boring. Why is this even in here?
Books were much rarer.
So much God could be telling us, but no, we don't get that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, are we moving on to the next one?
Yes.
I believe so.
Who's reading this one?
We got those narcissist bingo cards together, did we? We need to do that. Every time God does anything, I'm like, oh, great. Is this Darvo, gaslighting? What are we doing today?
All right. Who's reading this one?
I suppose I can read this one with my booming voice.
Booming.
Chapter 35. Josiah kept a Passover to the Lord in Jerusalem. They slaughtered the Passover lamb on the 14th day of the first month. He appointed the priests to their offices and encouraged them in the service of the house of the Lord. He said to the Levites who taught all Israel and who were holy to the Lord, "Put the holy ark in the house that Solomon, son of David, king of Israel, built. You need no longer carry it on your shoulders. Now serve the Lord your God and his people Israel. Make preparations by your ancestral houses, by your divisions, following the written directions of King David of Israel and the written directions of his son Solomon. Take position in the holy place according to the groupings of the ancestral houses of your kindred, the people, and let there be Levites for each division of an ancestral house. Slaughter the Passover lambs, sanctify yourselves, and on behalf of your kindred, make preparations, acting according to the word of the Lord by Moses." Then Josiah contributed to the people as Passover offerings for all who were present, lambs and kids from the flock to the number of 30,000 and 3,000 bulls.
Jesus.
These were from the king's possessions. His officials contributed willingly to the people, to the priests, and to the Levites. Hilkiah, Zechariah, Yehiel, the chief officers of the house of God, gave to the priests for the Passover offerings 2,600 lambs and kids and 300 bulls. Conaniah also, and his brother Shemaiah, and Nathanael, and Hashabiah, and Yeiel, and Yozabad, the chiefs of the Levites, gave to the Levites for the Passover
offerings 5,000 lambs and kids and 500 bulls. When the service had been prepared, this is a lot of fucking animals. It reminds me of another time we had a lot of animals being sacrificed. When
anyone watch the Dark Matter 2525 video where you just have the stacked animals all the way to the sky and God's like peeking down? Holy shit, I guess he really wants to talk to me.
Yeah. When the service had been prepared, the priests stood in their place and the Levites in their divisions according to the king's command. They slaughtered the Passover lamb, and the priests dashed the blood that they received from them, while the Levites did the skinning. They set aside the burnt offerings so that they might distribute them according to the groupings of the ancestral houses of the people to offer to the Lord, as it is written in the book of Moses. And they did the same with the bulls. They roasted the Passover lamb with the fire according to the ordinance, and they boiled the holy offerings in pots and cauldrons and in pans and carried them quickly to all the people. Afterward, they made preparations for themselves and for the priests, because the priests, the descendants of Aaron, were occupied in offering the burnt offerings and the fat parts until night. So the Levites made preparations for themselves and for the priests, the descendants of Aaron. The singers, the descendants of Asaph, were in their place according to the command of David, and Asaph and Heman, and the king's seer Jeduthun. The gatekeepers were at each gate. They did not need to interrupt their service, for their kindred the Levites made preparations for them. So all the service of the Lord was prepared that day, to keep the Passover and to offer burnt offerings on the altar of the Lord according to the command of Josiah. The people of Israel who were present kept the Passover at that time and the festival of unleavened bread 7 days. No Passover like it had been kept in Israel since the days of the prophet Samuel. None of the kings of Israel had kept such a Passover as was kept by Josiah, by the priests and the Levites, by all Judah and all Israel and Israel who were present, and by the inhabitants of Jerusalem. In the 18th year of the reign of Josiah, the Passover was kept. After all this, when Josiah had set the temple in order, King Necho of Egypt went up to fight at Carchemish on the Euphrates, and Josiah went out against him. But Necho sent envoys to him, saying, "What have I to do with you, King of Judah? I am not coming against you today, but against the house with which I am at war, and God has commanded me to hurry. Cease opposing God, who is with me, so that he will not destroy you." But Josiah would not turn away from him, but disguised himself in order to fight with him. He did not listen to the words of Necho from the mouth of God, but joined battle in the plain of Megiddo. The archers shot King Josiah, and the king said to his servants, "Take me away, for I am badly wounded." So his servants took him out of the chariot and carried him in his second chariot and brought him to Jerusalem. There he died and was buried in the tombs of the ancestors. All Judah and Jerusalem mourned for Josiah. Jeremiah also uttered a lament for Josiah. And all the singing men and singing women have spoken of Josiah in their laments to this day. They made these a custom in Israel. They are recorded in the laments. Now, the rest of the acts of Josiah and his faithful deeds, in accordance with what is written in the law of the Lord, and his acts, first and last, are written in the book of the kings of Israel and Judah.
I love how Josiah is judged for not listening to the word of the Lord from the mouth of an Egyptian king. Because,
right, yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I did not get the impression that Egyptian kings frequently spoke with the mouth of God.
No, but in this period, they loved putting the words of their God into the mouths of other people. So that's why we have it here. That's why we have Cyrus making some weird declaration in Ezra.
And on other Persian kings As we see in Ezra.
Sure,
well,
yeah.
and I mean, you've got Nebuchadnezzar and Daniel, but that's written way later. But at the same time, it's ridiculous. Like, it makes no sense. Literally the rule of the prophet seems to be, if what I say happens, then I was speaking from God. So you only find out after you're dead if you listen to God or not.
Well, I mean, you could argue that the God that Nicole speaks about is not the God of Israel.
Well, you
Could
could,
be an
but then it'd
Egyptian
be
god.
weird to say that Josiah didn't listen to the words of Nico from the mouth of God.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess, but like,
you could argue a bit of the divine right of kings. The Lord places in power, and thus anything the person in power says is done with the authority of God secondarily. But even still, it's been this whole fucking book, it's been all about go out and fight everyone that is not worshiping me, which is everyone. And don't you dare make any deals with those fuckers.
Yeah, I mean, I have a more detailed commentary on this on verse 22 because this is very unique to have a king of Egypt as a messenger of God. And did I mention that something that I wanted to? Oh, okay. So
I wanted to mention I think I noted this before when we were actually doing Exodus, but the distinction between the Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread, how they were two separate things. So that's why here it appears as two separate things. They were like, first they did Passover and then they did this, but now Passover is just the whole thing.
Retcon. Yeah. It's interesting. You can tell this is an earlier writing because it doesn't have the full retcon putting them together. Although also with this, for all that they're sacrificing way too many fucking animals, at least it's pretty clear everyone is eating at this. This is a massive barbecue. They're not just destroying the animals for no reason. Everybody's eating.
Well, there was certain fatty parts from each animal that had to be burnt completely, and it looked like the priests were so busy with that until midnight that they couldn't even prepare their own Passover, so the Levites had to do it for them.
Got a couple of comments here. My Unfinished Journey says, "Hail Aaron, hail Panel, and hail Narcissist Bingo." Duke of Many Things says, "Aaron, this puts me in mind of the cult/sect shown in the Jabberwocky movie. These we kill to show our piety." Yeah, I did like that cult in that movie. I like that movie a lot. So Kimai says, there is no heaven. There is no heaven after death makes me sad and depressed, and makes me want to go back to Judaism just in case it is true. Any advice you can give me? Thanks. Okay, well, here's a bit. If you go back to Judaism, then you're going to go to Christian hell because you didn't declare Jesus as your Lord and Savior. And if you do, then you're going to go to Muslim hell. But you're going to go to Muslim hell anyway, because everybody does basically, unless, of course, you wake up as a cow.
Then the Hindus were right.
Yeah, and then you'll just be reborn again and again and again in lots of different animals or whatever until you achieve Krishna consciousness.
We can't control.
Can I just say, the idea of eternal life fucking sucks. Like, I don't like this life. Why do you think I'm gonna like the next one? I know they say it's supposed to be like better, but no, it don't fucking matter. The state of existing kind of fucking sucks. The Buddhists had it right. Existence is pain. Life is suffering. They said life is suffering, but
we can't control what really is.
If you want
we're all gonna die.
I think one of the most interesting points that I've seen, right, is there's something special about a spark that burns forever. Because, like, if it just keeps going and going, no moment is going to be important for that. It's going to be, like, precious, right? So the fact that your life is finite, it gives you more reason to do things now. It gives you more reason to live this life to the fullest. So it's even, like, better, I think it's better that to not believe that there is eternal life somewhere. So while on the one hand we are human and there is some intrinsic fear of death, in the words of Epicurus, if death is, I am not. If I am, death is not. Why should I fear something that cannot possibly exist when I do? So, yeah, nothing to worry about.
Yeah. And then Humans Are Apes, cool name, says, "Hey, Aaron, what is the dumbest story in the Bible?"
Ooh, that's a tough one.
I mean, I don't like when you say dumb story, because when the story was written at the time, it had a meaning. It wasn't dumb. There was a reason that the story was created. So we can
you
say
still point to something and be like, well, that was even dumb then. So I'm trying to think of what was even dumb.
Jesus putting the ghosts in the pigs, whatever it was.
The demons.
Yeah, that was a dick move.
oh, you count the New Testament as part of the Bible. I forgot.
Well, for this question, you have to.
Yeah, well, the one I'm making a video on this right now.
I thought that the way that the Benjaminite War started, the fact that the dude cut up his concubine and then sent the pieces of her body throughout Israel, that was pretty
Even
fucking
Dexter
dumb.
wouldn't do that shit.
But to what Tomer was saying, I mean, I'm making a video right now about Genesis 3 and the things that people read into post hoc, you know. But like Tomer said, there was a reason why this fable was invented. I'm sure it was just a charming little folk tale once upon a time. But then people started taking it literally, as if snakes can talk. And then worse, they start recasting all of the characters. So when it says serpent, it really means Satan. When it says the woman, it means Israel. When it says the woman's offspring, that means Jesus. And when it says Satan's offspring, it means still Satan. And none of this shit makes any sense.
Well, it's I mean, in some sense, it would be more to it would be more to attack in another way the opponents of, especially the opponents of Matthew, like the Pharisees, especially. They're called a couple times. They're called, like, you know, offspring of vipers.
Yeah. Well, okay. Initially,
and
however,
the spawn of Satan as well.
Yeah, that too. The synagogue of Satan, the spawn of Satan. It's important to point out that the serpent is a symbol of wisdom and cunning in many other religions. And it's very likely that when this was originally written, this was about unseating other spiritual beliefs. That's definitely one of the possibilities. The great thing about fundamentalism and the literal mindedness is that it makes every story stupid in various unique ways. It just, you know, it's like the idiot's version of everything. It's all really, really, really fucking dumb. So just listen to a literalist, and any story you want can be the dumbest story you've ever heard. That's what we've encountered through this book. But yeah, it's I still say it was me in the garden, girls looking out for girls.
All right, thanks for that. All right, I'm gonna what
did you want to say, Aaron?
You were gonna say something.
You were gonna say something.
I was gonna start reading the next.
I'm sorry. I think you
Do you have something to say, Tomer?
The next two incoming comments, Aaron?
Apparently not.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So my unfinished sock says, don't interpret the Bible through an exclusively modern lens. Like and share the stream instead. And then Jamie Wells offers $10. Thank you. And says, thank you all for this awesome fucking channel. And can we please get Tomer to sing us in with Guess Who's Talking About Jesus?
Yeah, maybe one. So wait, do I have any questions for chapter 36? No.
Okay.
So, but I promise you.
Questions.
But next
you can always
time
just
we'll have
sing the jingle and then be like, no one.
Yeah,
No one is talking
I mean,
about Jesus
I
for this
kind of want,
chapter.
I kind of want to do something for Ezra, Nehemiah, as well as Esther, because there's essentially one guy who's commenting on this. But yeah, you know what? I'll do it for you. I'll do it for you for this. Like,
You'll do it for the viewers.
Yeah, for the viewers, of course.
For the fans. He only does it for the fans.
Yeah.
I have an idea. What if Tomer would study that song a little, and then next week or next episode, instead of the usual music at the outro, we can have Tomer accompanying himself on the guitar, singing Guess Who's Talking About Jesus, as long as the end credits roll. That would be a cool idea.
I think. Oh shit! I had a joke. I forgot it. I'll get it back.
I guess. Oh, by the way, this chapter is actually the beginning of First Esdras, which is like, it's fucking weird. It's like Ezra, but not really in Septuagint. It's like Ezra with a lot of additions, which I have no idea why. It's odd,
They cut it up in weird ways where you get up to like what 6 or something.
No, no, you have actually. It's odd. You have
because they have other ones that are not in the canon, right?
Yeah, I mean it has like a bunch of additions, but it's like basically Second Chronicles 35 to 36 in chapter 1, and then all of Ezra, and then in the final it's Nehemiah 7 through 8 or something. But it's odd because there is also Second Esdras in the Septuagint, which is Ezra Nehemiah as the translation. It's fucking bizarre.
It gets very complicated. That's one of the things that we noted on Atheist Sunday School was like, man, this is all sorts of fucked up because we were reading one of the Ezra's books, but you have to remember there's also third and fourth.
Yes.
Or there's what is it?
No,
there's also other
Ezras.
books of Ezra which are counted under Esdras as well. So they get up to a whole bunch of them.
Yes.
So it does get very complicated.
It's giving a clusterfuck.
Yes. But when I say First Esdras, I mean the Greek Ezra or Ezra Alpha text, whatever it is. So, yeah, but when you get to Ezra,
the Alpha text was for.
It's the same. It's basically the same. You can say it's called Greek Ezra, Ezra's Alpha. I'm just going to stick
there's
with
also
First Esdras.
Alpha text is also in. I know that also has
Esther.
Esther. Yeah.
But for the conventions, for convention's sake, when I say First Esdras, I'm referring to First Esdras. Okay.
Great. Tom, a lot of people in the comments want to know what the Braille is supposed to say, but is it just gibberish?
No, it's not gibberish. It's I give one hint. Mortis.
Rigor.
No.
Rigor mortis.
It's deep. Okay, so
It's deep. Okay.
Deep, very deep for nerds. Okay, so I'll start with first one. Japhet comments, quote, "The introduction of the Passover deviates in three principal points from its parallel in 2 Kings 23:21. According to Kings, the initiative is Josiah's, but its performance is the people's. In practical terms, this would imply that everyone would care for his own Passover sacrifice, the only innovation being the location, celebrating in Jerusalem rather than in the provinces. According to Chronicles, however, everything concerning this festival has been left to Josiah. The chronicler also omits the clause, as it is written in this book of the covenant. Although the reference to the date at the end, in verse 19, will connect the celebration of the Passover with the finding of the book and the Insuric covenant, this is greatly played down. On the other hand, the chronicler emphasizes more than the fact that the Passover is in Jerusalem. These words are moved from the conclusion in 2 Kings 23:23 to the beginning of the account. On verse 3, put the sacred ark in the temple that Solomon, son of David, king of Israel, built. We're not previously told that the ark was moved from the temple. The last time the ark was mentioned was in 5:2-10, aka 1 Kings 8:1-9, when Solomon installed it in the temple, and is mentioned in 8:11 as part of the reason that Solomon built a separate house for Pharaoh's daughter. Pseudo Rashi and Kimchi suggested that Manasseh removed the ark and placed idols instead. Chazal in Talmud Yoma 52b explained that Josiah ordered that the ark be hidden away, so that it not be taken away with the exile. Probably fucked it up. Dillard suggested that its restoration was symbolically reenacted, so that the dedication of the temple under Josiah was likened to its initial dedication under Solomon. He writes, however, that there is no other evidence of this. Levin notes that Haran claimed that Manasseh had removed it from the temple, after which it had disappeared forever. Thus, the reference to the ark here is not historical, but included by the chronicler, quote, under the influence of the priestly sections of the Pentateuch, end quote. Levin notes the different textual explanations given. Septuagint reads, and they put, as a verb rather than as injunction, which may reflect an original vayitnu instead of Masoretic text tanu. First Esdras reads the phrase as part of a longer sentence, quote, sanctify yourselves to the Lord when replacing the holy ark of the Lord in the house. Rudolph suggested reading natanu, natnu, they have put, again making it part of a large clause, which Japhet renders, the holy ark was placed in the house which Solomon built, and Klein, since the holy ark has been brought into the house.
It doesn't make sense, though, because it explicitly says you don't need to carry it around on your shoulders anymore, presumably like you've been doing. I mean, if you're putting it away to hide it away, you don't carry it around out in public. And while there's several stories, obviously, of carrying the ark, to cause the crossing of the Jordan River or carrying it out into battle, the text itself sounds very much like this is the first time the ark has been put in the temple. Despite the fact that we had that whole thing with David bringing the ark and Solomon, obviously the ark would be in the temple. Where the fuck else would it be? But yeah, this is a glitch.
I guess.
Also, we were talking earlier, Lawrence, about the distinction between Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread, though they appear to happen at roughly the same time of year. Do you think one of those could have originally been a Judean practice and the other one an Israelite practice, or do we have any scholarship on that?
I don't think I've seen anything on that specifically. I mean, it was a while ago. I did a video on the history of the Passover where I talked about it. But I don't think any of the scholars I read went into that.
Okay, fair enough. Just a random hypothesis I wondered about.
Okay, on verses 4 through 6, Dillard comments, quote, the chronicler specifically parallels David and Solomon in 3 passages. Verse 4, 11:17, 7:10, contrast 1 Kings 8:66. All passages putting Solomon in a favorable light. Though the Passover animal was ordinarily slaughtered by the lay offerer, as we see in Deuteronomy 16:5 and 6, and Exodus 12:3 through 6 and 21, the chronicler understands that Josiah continued the practice of slaughter by the Levites as begun under Hezekiah. Under Hezekiah, this practice was explained as exigency due to the ritual impurity of some participants. The practice has either become normalized by the time of Josiah, according to Rudolph, Curtis Madsen, and Myers, or we are invited to infer a further exigency, perhaps the sheer number of participants in verses 14 and 18.
That would make sense. I mean, if these numbers are even in the vicinity of accurate, the number of participants involved there would be practical concerns.
Okay, according, sorry. I thought I was going to say something. Yeah. Okay, on verse 7, Japhet comments, quote, according to the Pentateuchal sources, the Passover sacrifice itself is taken only from the small cattle, quote, you shall take it from the sheep or from the goats, end quote, in Exodus 12:5, probably deriving from the original character of the feast as a shepherd's sacrifice. On the other hand, Deuteronomy 16, which is not especially precise in ceremonial details, establishes a general rule, quote, and you shall offer the Passover sacrifice to the Lord your God from the flock, tzon, or the herd, bakar, at the place which your Lord will choose, end quote, in 16:2. This may imply that, contrary to tradition and all other sources, the Passover sacrifice itself includes large cattle also, and this may, on the face of the matter, be supported by our text. Rudolf has correctly pointed out that this can hardly be the case, and has suggested that the large cattle are intended for the peace offerings of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which are mentioned here too early. Since the Feast of Unleavened Bread, however, plays only a secondary role in this context, in verse 17, such a reference would be premature and much too elaborate. These sacrifices, then, may belong to the category defined in rabbinical terminology as shelamei chagiga, that is, peace offering sacrifices, offered during the festivals. These were offered at the eve of Passover together with the Passover lamb, according to Mishnah Chagiga 1. They thus belonged to the Passover, but were not the Passover sacrifice.
I mean, they were trying to kiss God's ass so he wouldn't smite them, at least in the narrative, so. Add some extra baby back ribs.
Hey, Tomer, could you do me a favor real quick? So what was the citation you had there when you mentioned, was it Exodus
12:5.
12:5? You mentioned something about the sheep and goats right before that?
Yes. The sacrifice itself is taken only from the small cattle.
Yeah, like the sheep and goats, not actual cows.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I thought you were quoting something there. Okay, never mind.
Okay.
Because I've been doing this Matthew commentary, and there's the parable of the sheep and the goats. So I was like, oh wait, is that a thing? But then you weren't quoting.
So you reached the conclusion that this refers to Jesus.
Yep. There you go, Jesus.
Very good.
I did it for you.
Yeah.
Sounds like a squirrel, but I think the answer is Jesus.
Oh wait a minute. I can do this now.
I was just about to ask that because in one of the arguments that I'm constantly in is these idiots who tell me everything in the Bible is about Jesus.
Yeah, that's bullshit.
Yeah. So somebody brings up the thing about a particular passage about slavery of Jewish slaves, how to keep Jewish slaves forever, and how is that about Jesus? Of course, we don't get an answer. And reading through this, how the Chronicles, the 2 chapters we just read, where's Jesus?
There's always a way to draw the analogy. And
wait, guys, this one's easy.
Yeah,
the Passover lamb.
He is the Passover lamb, absolutely, and he takes away the anger of the Lord, who then he won't smite you because you ate his flesh. Although the drinking of blood doesn't quite line up, but it's pretty close.
I want to make the joke already, please. Guess who's talking about Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Guess talk about Jesus. It's Lawrence.
The truth of the matter is, though, it gave me a skill in finding a justification for, and I do mean this literally, any fucking thing I wanted. Now, I am a deeply ethical person with a commitment to truth and justice, but if I were not, oh my God, I could be a fucking fucked up lobbyist. Like, I could justify anything. I won't, but I could.
I just realized something. JD Vance, lobbies. What's the connection?
Oh, couches.
Good. That's a good one.
Oh God, someone needs to get a shock collar. You can't even beat him with a rolled up newspaper anymore. I don't even think it registers.
Okay, so on verse 13, they roasted the Passover animals over the fire as prescribed. According to Exodus 12, 1-10, the Passover is to be roasted over fire with unleavened bread and bitter herbs, and explicitly states not to eat it raw or boiled in water. In Hebrew, vebashel mevushal b'mayim. In Deuteronomy 16:7, the people are ordered to boil or cook it. In Hebrew, vebishalta. Although most other translations, Pseudo Rashi, Meyuchas, and Butseko, argue that bashel here refers to roasting, Klein writes that the chronicler attempts to harmonize the two conflicting Pentateuchal regulations, and in fact there is no biblical ordinance for this harmonization, already noted by Kimchi. He quotes from Ben Tzvi, quote, The chronicler expands the semantic meaning of boil to include not only boiling in water or milk, but also boiling in fire, which in practice is roasting.
Boiling in fire. That's one I haven't heard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue that the word bashal by itself could mean cook, and then that's why the prohibition against boiling says, do not cook cooking in water. So it uses the word bashal twice. Yeah, one is like the verb of cooking, and one is specifically boiling in water.
Right. Well, and there are definitely prohibitions that specify a form of cooking, like boiling in its mother's milk. Which apparently means I can't have a bacon double cheeseburger if I'm eating kosher, but fuck that.
I love how that one like spread into so many different like other rules. So it's like, okay, so you can't have don't boil a kid in a mother's goat. So that means you can't eat any goat in milk. Oh, but that also means you can't have any meat at all, like any cattle.
And then the
with
argument
milk.
over whether chicken was meat.
Yeah. And then chicken is included, and then
but
fish.
you can have like chicken salad with an egg based, which like the principle of the thing, you would think having chicken and egg together would be the wrong thing because, but
the same idea, yeah.
Yeah, same idea, but no, instead it can't be with cheese.
Yeah, you start adding cheese, and then you start any dairy products, and it's like adding meat, but then also chicken, and then fish. But although some people are okay with cheese and fish, that's why you have like lox and cream cheese. But some people won't eat it.
Really? Yeah. But that's like the most Jewish
very
thing
aesthetic.
Ever. That's
well.
Yeah, I think it's more. I think it's a New York invention, no? Lox and cheese.
Lox and bagels with cream cheese.
Bagel. Yeah, maybe. It could have already been like, pretty modernist at that time.
Very
I mean, there's definitely like some like ultra orthodox Hasidic people who probably don't eat it. Yeah, just because it's a problem.
Fun.
It's a very OCD religion. Sorry. They like finding rules to give themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh God. The anxiety is real.
What verse are you up to, Tomer?
15.
Yeah.
So, on verse 15, the musicians, the descendants of Asaph. According to 1 Chronicles 25, 1-6, David's authority is linked to the three heads of the singers, i.e. Asaph, Heman, and Yeduthun, which all or one of them is called the seer of the king here. Japhet notes that calling all the musicians the sons of Asaph is considered an early stage in the development of the musicians class, as we see in Ezra 2:41 and 3:10 and Nehemiah 7:44, before they split into three branches. She takes the sons of Asaph here to be a frozen term, quote unquote, encompassing all the branches of the singers. On verse 17, according to this verse, the Passover was celebrated by the sons of Israel, which Klein takes to refer to the Israelites collectively. Levin notes that unlike Hezekiah, Josiah did not send messengers out to invite the northerners to the Passover, since he already purified the north in the previous chapter, so it is taken for granted that the northerners would now join. Japhet notes that the mention of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, in Hebrew Chag HaMatzot, is an addition to the king's account, in which it is not mentioned at all, but also presents a change from the chronicler's own Hezekiah account and play a secondary role under Josiah. On verse 18, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah.
Verse
on verse 8, yes, verse 18. This verse returns to the Volage in Kings, 2 Kings 23:22, though with the chronicler's own changes. It is unclear how this Passover was different from the previous Passover festivals. Though Hezekiah already celebrated a Passover, he did not do it correctly, quote unquote, celebrating it on the wrong date, and the festival of unleavened bread not lasting the proper number of days. Pseudo Rashi, citing Rabbi Eliezer, son of Rabbi Meshulam, wrote that Josiah had his officials supplied animals for everyone's Passover and festival offerings, and he commanded the Levites to prepare for them everything. Kimchi wrote that this was the first time in which all Israel were of one mind to worship the Lord. Dillard compared this verse with 30:26, with the chronicler incorporating both statements from his sources without feeling the need to harmonize them. Klein writes that the chronicler may suggest that the role of the Levites also in sacrificing the Passover animals goes back to the time of Samuel, but Levin notes that the Levites played a prominent role in Hezekiah's Passover as well. 2 Kings 23:22 states that no such power has been done ever since the days of the judges who judged Israel. Japhet notes that Chronicles rarely refers to the judges period, whilst Samuel is a person of stature in Chronicles, with him writing the history of David, as well as establishing the role of the gatekeepers.
And he was the last judge in canon, at least. So, yeah, I guess that works. But it is kind of funny that they're like Hezekiah, oh, no Passover has been celebrated like this since the days of the judges. And then Josiah's like 3 generations later, oh, no Passover has ever been celebrated like this since, I'm like, okay, guys, sure.
Okay, on verse 20, Japhet comments, quote, Necho's expedition to Chalchemish was long explained according to the data of Kings as a step taken against Assyria. Since the publication of the Babylonian Chronicles, it has become clear that Necho was going to support Assyria against the rising power of Babylon and not oppose it, and that the army stationed at Chalchemish managed to hold out until 605 BCE. Josiah's intervention did not take place at one of the locations along the sea route, although, as learned from the Ostraca of Hashabiah, the kingdom of Judah had expanded to the west, but rather near Megiddo, in the narrow pass of the Iron Valley. Josiah arrived at this location by marching through the hill country, the former territory of the northern kingdom, which after its fall was under Assyrian domination. Josiah's march against Pharaoh Necho on his way to support Assyria may be explained by his fear that a stronger Assyria might be a threat to his newly gained freedom and territorial expansion.
I mean, he's not wrong, but also, I don't think they were ever really in the position to take on Egypt.
Peter, I think you missed a super chat.
I mean, is it possible that they were already like working with is it the Babylonians or something against? So they would have been like the Babylonians didn't want Necho coming to support the Assyrians against them, so they got one of their vassals to intercept him.
I did.
Even though
My apologies.
he wouldn't be able to defeat them. What?
Yeah, as just Peter missed the comment, so.
Oh, okay.
Peter!
Is that a possibility?
No, he posted it.
Okay, good.
Okay, so Angel Fish offers $10 and says, Tomer, Spotify, when?
Well, I don't have a Spotify, but I do have a SoundCloud. If people want to check it out, I posted it on the chat. I haven't done it in quite a while, at least in February. I want to record again, but like I need a job, so I need to care of things first.
SoundCloud, what is this? 2011?
Yeah, I like my I'm old.
Not old enough to be using Napster.
I'm not going to say any names, but there are services that allow you to, publish in one place and then they just put it on all of the websites.
Yeah, I know, but like, I don't wanna
put it on Lawrence's Discord. I'm sure everyone.
I did already. I did a bunch of times.
I'm saying repost.
I will. Don't worry. Okay.
Maybe if Lilith, paid attention to the Discord, she'd know that.
I'm saying he could post the link to that specific song now because we can.
It's not a song. It's my life.
Like spoken words.
Where was I? My mind was blank. Okay, on verse 21. God has told me to hurry. Hebrew for God here is Elohim. Some commentators take the Elohim here to refer not to Yahweh, but to an Egyptian deity. For example, PSGD reads, "This is idolatry," in Hebrew, Zo Avodah Zarah. Targum replaces "my God" with "my idol." Japhet interprets the phrase "God who is with me," in Hebrew, Elohim Asher Imi, as a statue, with reference to Necho's own Egyptian god, but writes that God, in verse 22, is the God of Israel. Klein takes the chronicler's comment in verse 22 to indicate that the God in verses 21 and 22 to be the God of Israel. First Esdras 125 also understood Necho's reference to be to Yahweh, and Levin follows.
I mean, it's interesting that he uses the expression Elohim, which, could be read as a plural as well, like the gods, but the verb is singular. So maybe, is it possible that later scribes or the chronicler edited it to be singular Elohim, but the original maybe was saying plural?
The gods are with me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's possible.
Gods that are with me, God has sent me.
Peter, I think my link was deleted, so I'll send you this and you can post it there. Okay.
Yeah. If it was just singular God, then if it was singular, like the normal word for singular God, which should just be El or Eloah, then you could argue
the thing
that
is, it's still weird if you consider that the chronicler, like I told already know this, and I did earlier. He did not listen to the words of Nico from the mouth of God, but joined the battle in the plain of Megiddo, and then he, subsequently gets fucking murked. So
yeah.
I think it makes sense to interpret that as it's supposed to be the words of Yahweh.
Right. Okay. Yeah, and that could be part of a later version or something. I don't know. Okay, that's true.
My next comment will be about that. So on verse 22, Levin notes that the presentation of the king of Egypt as a messenger of God is unique. He notes that Williamson, who assumed that the chronicler's account was based on a historical source, commented, quote, "It is hard to suppose that Necho would have explained his movements theologically," end quote. On the other hand, he notes that the speech is not typically chronistic, since the chronicler would have normally used a typical Levitical sermon, quote-unquote. Instead of the words of Necho, 1 Esdras 126 reads, "the words of the prophet Jeremiah." Since Necho is not mentioned in 1 Esdras at all, Talshu suggested that the words Necho and Navi, in Hebrew prophet, quote, "have some orthographical features in common," end quote. Although Levin notes that she does... Sorry?
That would at least make more sense. It does. I mean, these stories, it's usually some dirty, crazed old man comes and tells you what the word of the Lord is. And then if you listen to him, things will go badly for you, but God won't have to smite you. And then if you don't listen to him, then God will smite you. So.
Although Levin notes that she does not think that the change was caused by an error, but rather the author of 1 Esdras was uncomfortable with the idea that a pagan king would serve as a prophet of God. He writes, however, that Jeremiah is mentioned several times more in this chapter than in the next. He notes that Luchter suggested that the original Vorlage might have actually named Jeremiah as the conveyor of God's message, and it was the chronicler who made the change to Necho in order to fit what he read in Kings. Kimchi also suggested that the reference is to Jeremiah, but Targum reads the words of the lame one, reading Neche instead of Necho, who had spoken about his idol, and Peshita, the words of the lame Pharaoh.
Good Lord. Although Jeremiah was one of the ones involved in the big argument over whether or not they should seek help from Egypt or work with Egypt or cooperate with Egypt, wasn't he?
He might have been. I remember Isaiah was definitely in there.
Oh yeah, but there were a couple of them that were fighting with each other, and they're both canonically prophets of God, and it's kind of funny.
Yeah. What I found interesting was also I could see how they would get the link to Jeremiah because of the mention of the laments.
Yeah.
I could see that.
Yeah. I wanted to see if there's any reference.
Yeah. Also, just this Necho, King of Egypt, is normally understood by modern scholars to refer to, or was called by modern scholars Necho II, and he is mentioned by Ashurbanipal writings to do with like his wars against Elam and Susa.
Yeah.
So can't remember though if it says that he was fighting against him or with him, but he is attested to as a person.
Well, that's something.
And it probably was him, his army that ended up killing Josiah. Doesn't make sense.
Okay, on verse 24, Klein comments, quote, "The chronicler's account again differs from the Folage in 2 Kings 23:30a. Quote, his servants made him ride dead from Megiddo, and they brought him to Jerusalem and buried him in his own grave." End quote. Hence, the chronicler has Josiah change vehicles and die only after his arrival in Jerusalem rather than at Megiddo in 2 Kings 23:29. In addition, he slightly alters Josiah's burial place. Since Josiah only died many miles from the battlefield, it could be said that he died in peace in accordance with the oracle of Huldah. Again, First Esdras downplays Josiah's condition since Josiah was able to move to his secondary chariot, apparently without any assistance, in 129. Christine Mitchell notes that the prophecy that Josiah would die in peace, in Hebrew Beshalom, is the occasion for a wordplay by the chronicler, who has him die in Jerusalem, in Hebrew Yerushalayim. Ristau argues unconvincingly that Josiah did not die for refusing to listen to the words of Necho, but that his death results from the telos of God's will as revealed through Huldah.
Yeah, there is like a Jewish commentaries that say things like Necho gave his speech, whatever, and then the king asked the prophets like Jeremiah, is this true? Is God on his side? And they said yes, and then he still decides to fight him, and that's why he died, whatever. Yeah.
The answer is always God is an asshole.
Yeah.
Always the answer to the question.
Yeah, in Targum it says, and when he heard how he mentioned his idol, he did not turn back, because according to Targum he said that he's my idol instead of my God, Necho at least. And finally, on 25, it is unclear if Jeremiah's laments to Josiah are recorded in the Bible. Klein notes that Rudolph points out that earlier scholars identified this lament with Jeremiah 22:10 and 30:18 through 21. Oh my God, 30:18 through 21, or a misunderstanding of Jeremiah 22:18. Peshitta, Targum, Gersandis, and Meyuchas suggested that the reference is to the Book of Lamentations, with Rudolph claiming that Lamentations is known by the title The Lament, in Hebrew Hakinot. Levin notes that others, like Jerome, Targum to Lamentations, and Talshir, assume that Lamentations 4:20 refers specifically to Josiah, but Klein writes that the passage clearly refers to the last king of Judah. Others think that the chronicler was referring to a now-lost book of Lamentations. Targum reads, "They are written in the book which Baruch wrote at Jeremiah's dictation."
So, like that's like just the Book of Lamentations is the short one,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, also, if you guys, I think it's Second Baruch. If you guys have not read Second Baruch, it's a fucking trip.
Oh, should I get high first?
You probably should, honestly.
Okay.
Did Second Baruch inspire Lamentations 4:20?
It might have.
Yeah, I'm done. No ancient Christians.
Okay.
We have another comment from Duke of Many Things, who says, Lawrence, am I right? Egypt is home to one of the extant popes, other than Greek Ortho, Russian Ortho, Ethiopian, and him in Rome.
Probably the Coptic Pope?
Yeah, Coptic
Yeah, that would make
Orthodox Church.
sense. The Coptic one. Yeah.
Who is
he called the Pope or just the
But
Patriarch?
Yeah,
I have
he is
no
called,
idea.
He is called the Pope. He is Pope Tawadros II of Alexandria.
Yeah,
And
Tawados,
he,
which I think is
that's
David, right?
Yeah,
Tawadros?
that's a very the Ethiopians use I think,
Theodorus.
the name of the Ethiopian church is like one of their Was one of their founders named that? Hold on.
The Ethiopians have the oldest Bible and one of the oldest forms of Christianity, which is why no one listens to them.
I think.
Yeah, it was also the name of one of the Ethiopian emperors. Yeah. But I think there's even it goes back even further. I think.
Yeah.
I remember coming across this name a lot when I was talking about the canonization of First Enoch in the
Tawadros.
Ethiopian canon.
Tawadros, yes.
Yeah, it's just the Coptic form of Theodoros. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Although when it comes to more like modern stuff, I just stopped caring. Like honestly.
Yeah.
He looks like the Baba Sali.
We need more. Who was that pope that had sex? John the 12th or something? I think.
No pope.
The one
ever had
pope.
sex
No,
except
John
for this
12th.
one pope that had sex.
No.
Okay, are
John
we talking about the one that had like the Borgia and all the illegitimate children?
No. It's called the rule of pornography or something like that. Pornocracy, something like that. If I remember correctly, if that's referring to John the 12th or something, pornocracy.
Pornea?
Oh, no. It's something else. Kinda.
Pornocracy as a form of government sounds fucking awesome.
No, it is. It is called the rule of the harlots in the first 2/3 of the 10th century, following the chaos after the death of Pope Formosus. So I was kind of right.
Had all the priests be gay, then they could have just stuck on their, not gotten married and hooked up with each other in the abbeys, and it would have been fine. But no, they had to be all gross about it.
Yeah, I'm done with the commentary. By the way, Aaron, can you please do like your magic stuff or something?
My magic stuff.
I don't know. You're a Satanist, right? You do magic.
Yeah, the thing we don't believe in. All right, so moving on to 2 Chronicles 36, and when we're done with this, what?
The final chapter.
Yep, when we're done with this, we can celebrate that there is no 3rd Chronicles.
Oh, thank fuck. Oh.
All right, we ready?
Yeah.
And the people of the land took Jehoahaz, son of Josiah, and made him king in Jerusalem in place of his father. Jehoahaz was 23 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 3 months.
Shit.
Yeah, you want to last in this job, you got to start at 8. The king of Egypt dethroned him in Jerusalem and imposed on Judah a levy of 100 talents of silver and a talent of gold. The king of Egypt made Eliakim, the brother of Jehoahaz, king of Judah and Jerusalem, and changed Eliakim's name to Jehoiakim.
Which is weird, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Jehoiakim in Hebrew, but,
No, it's just weird that he changed it from a Ellis name to a Yahweh's name, but
yeah. I think we saw that in 2 Kings as well.
So. It could just be because he made him king, so he gave him a more kingly name.
But Necho took Eliakim's brother Jehoahaz and carried him off to Egypt. Jehoiakim was 25 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem. What?
Joachim, I think. Jehoiakim.
Yeah.
Let the man speak.
You could read the I as a yes sound, so Yakim, Jehoiakim.
Jehoiakim?
Yeah.
Okay, Jehoiakim was 25 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 11 years. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord his God. Nebuchadnezzar, because our names aren't weird enough yet, king of Babylon, attacked him and bound him with bronze shackles to take him to Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar also took to Babylon articles from the temple of the Lord and put them in his temple there. The other events of Jehoiakim's or Jehoiakim's reign, the detestable things he did, and all that was found against him are written in the book of the kings of Israel and Judah. And Jehoiachin, his son, succeeded him as king.
Is it just me, or do those who do evil in the sight of the Lord and do not remember the God of their forefathers, is it just me, or do they reign longer and frequently more successfully?
I hadn't noticed. Jehoiachin was 18 years old when he became king, and he reigned.
Wait, Aaron, just stop, because StreamYard is acting weird.
Okay,
go on.
Also, it's not a
You
ch
sound like
sound.
you're underwater.
Yeah.
It's not a ch sound. It's either ch or k.
Yeah, more phlegm. It's
Jehoiachin.
Hebrew always go for more phlegm, but admittedly,
Yeah.
Thanks, I guess.
hey, it is what it is. That in German.
Yeah.
But more, it's about where the goes in a sound. But yeah. Just say something. Let's see if your mic sounds better right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Jehoiachin
Yes, exactly.
was 18 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 3 months and 10 days. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord. In the spring, King Nebuchadnezzar sent for him and brought him to Babylon, together with articles of value from the temple of the Lord. And he made Jehoiachin's uncle, Zedekiah, king over Judah and Jerusalem.
Zedekiah is a priest's name.
Zedekiah was 21 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 11 years. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord his God, and did not humble himself before Jeremiah the prophet, who spoke the word of the Lord. He also rebelled against King Nebuchadnezzar, who had made him an oath in God's name. He became stiff-necked and hardened his heart, and would not turn to the Lord, the God of Israel. Furthermore, all the leaders of the priests and the people became more and more unfaithful, following all the detestable practices of the nations and defiling the temple of the Lord, which he had consecrated in Jerusalem. The Lord, the God of their ancestors, sent word to them through his messenger again and again, because God doesn't know how to speak to people. And it's not like he has to send a messenger to travel, because God can't do all that traveling. But they mocked God's messengers, despised his words, and scoffed at his prophets, until the wrath of the Lord was aroused against his people, and there was no remedy. He brought up against them the king of the Babylonians, who killed their young men with the sword in the sanctuary, and did not spare young men or women, the elderly or the infirm. God gave them all into the hands of Nebuchadnezzar. He carried to Babylon all the articles from the temple of God, both large and small, and the treasures of the Lord's temple, and the treasures of the king and his officials. They set fire to God's temple and broke down the wall of Jerusalem. They burnt all the palaces and destroyed everything of value there, because that's what religion does. He carried into exile to Babylon the remnant who escaped from the sword, and they became servants to him and successors until the kingdom of Persia came to power. The land enjoyed its Sabbath rests. All the time of its desolation it rested, until the 70 years were completed in fulfillment of the word of the Lord spoken by Jeremiah. In the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, in order to fulfill the word of the Lord spoken by Jeremiah, the Lord moved the heart of Cyrus, king of Persia, to make a proclamation throughout the realm, and also put it into writing. This is what Cyrus, king of Persia, says. The Lord, the God of heaven, has given me all the kingdoms of the earth, and he has appointed me to build a temple for him in Jerusalem in Judah, at Jerusalem in Judah. Any of his people among you may go up, and may the Lord their God be with them. And that's how Chronicles ends.
Yeah.
Wow, talk about fast forwarding the end of the story.
Well,
I really want to know, what are these detestable practices?
Yeah.
Are they hot?
It wouldn't be as
they
detestable as
kinky?
what the believers are doing.
Probably not. No. But well, the things that bad people find detestable are often actually just fun, and they don't like fun.
Well, I mean, I think the general is a general term for idolatry, if I remember correctly.
So, just want to say, in the last bit of this book, you have that it goes a bit further than Kings, right? Because it goes to a later date. And it talks about how, like, oh, Jeremiah prophesied 70 years, and land rested. Nebuchadnezzar, destroyed the kingdom, and 70 years later, Cyrus the Great let them return. But I don't think those numbers add up when looking
They
at
do not.
the actual.
do
And
not.
there is this great discrepancy between the sort of traditional Jewish dating from that point on, and it's almost like a 200-year difference sometimes.
Oh yeah.
Everything is all over the place, but it's something like you have things like, oh yeah, Cyrus was the son of Esther and Ahasuerus, the king in the book, and then they're like, and that guy is just the grandson of, or his wife was the granddaughter of Nebuchadnezzar, so it's like it's a very short period. But like if we look at like the actual like history, the Cyrus II, the one that is who's sometimes called Cyrus the Great because of his the Cyrus cylinder, he reigned 559 to 530, and Nebuchadnezzar was like 605 562, so it's not that much time.
No, the
But,
numbers
like,
don't line up. They
yeah,
never do. They never do. And it's important
Yeah.
for people who are attempting to make excuses for the Bible to know that there is literally no way in any universe that the Bible could be right and the Babylonians wrong in their dating. Because in addition to everything else, they watched the stars and kept detailed records of certain astrological phenomenon that we can trace exactly when they were. It's
Yeah,
an
but
absolute dating system.
Yeah, it's even more extreme because, like, as I was saying, like, oh yeah, so you've got like this Cyrus II and Nebuchadnezzar. They actually are pretty close to each other. It is about 50, 60 years. But the problem is that after Cyrus, there's like another 10 Persian kings. And in the Jewish tradition, he's the one who gets defeated by Alexander the Great. So
Which he is not.
they completely skip out like 200 years, 150 to 200 years of Persian history, because there's nothing in the Bible about it.
So
And
the Bible is
so-
wrong again.
First,
Shock.
they kind of confuse Cyrus and Darius, like the much, much later one, with the first Darius.
I mean,
it's really stupid.
Darius
but,
the
yeah.
Mede.
Yeah, so Darius the Mede is a character
yeah.
in the Bible who is identified with either Darius, the son of Cyrus, which makes no sense.
Yeah,
or I think it's
Daniel, I think.
Or that he's like some general of Nebuchadnezzar.
Yeah, but Daniel is
Fiction.
not. Yeah, it's historical fiction in the very fiction sense. It gestures in the direction of a couple of people and things that sort of happened vaguely.
Yeah.
It's like a bodice ripping romance set in, Scotland during Robert the Bruce. There will be 2 or 3 named characters that are real, but nothing else about that is going to be too terribly historical.
That's Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunter.
Yeah. But, yeah. So I think one of the big things is like the Second Temple in the Jewish traditional system. I think there's a book that kind of a very long time ago, like in the medieval times, someone sat down and wrote down like a timeline of biblical history, and that's where like modern religious Jews kind of get their dates for these things. So he actually has the Second Temple standing for a lot less than it actually probably did stand, because they kind of do like the 70 years in exile, then they come back and they build the Second Temple, and then the Greeks come like 50 years late, like a really short time later, but in reality it was like 300. It was like 300 years later or whatever.
It's interesting that we have no history written of that 300 years where, like, they were a kingdom and just functioning. I mean, they weren't independent, but the life.
I mean, we
and
have
history.
we do have We do have Maccabees, but it's not part of the Hebrew Bible. And I'm sure there are books that definitely are second period, temple period,
Yeah.
but they're all back.
I think Daniel
dated.
Daniel is
Yeah.
Second Temple, and as I
Da-
think
Daniel
Ezra as well.
was
Daniel's Second Temple, but
Ezra and
that's during
Nehemiah.
the Greek. That's wasn't it written
Right
Antiochus
to
the
the-
fourth Epiphanes is like it's during like what the second century BC.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like it's
So there's still a couple hundred years there not represented.
They probably were writing during that time, but they weren't writing about the current time, and so there's nothing written about this current time. They just kind of collapsed it, and they were just like Persian period, Greek period, and they just plonked it all together.
I mean, it
Yeah.
could be.
well, I mean, it was
argued
written
that,
about it, but not like directly about that time. Like they were writing about their own issues.
Right,
But-
exactly. The
yeah.
story
I mean, it
doesn't
could be
explicitly
argued-
say.
It could be argued that like Job, at least, right? Is
Actually,
also supposed
Job.
to
Yeah, there is an argument to be made there. But
I
you
mean,
know
all
what?
the, like,
we'll have to
the-
ask Chrissy about that one.
Ecclesiastes,
And
etc.
just to
There's
remind
plenty
everybody-
of texts that are Second Temple. I think
Yes,
most of
yes.
these
Yeah,
texts
yeah,
are
yeah.
Second Temple. So
Yeah, but they don't. The thing
yeah.
is, there's no Hebrew texts that talk about all of the different Persian kings. They only mention, I guess, Ahasuerus, which you could say is Artaxerxes,
Yeah, no,
Darius,
it's
Cyrus,
no,
and
no,
then
no, no,
one other guy.
no. Ahasuerus is Xerxes. Is
Not
referred to, but-
Artaxerxes.
No. There is Xerxes, and then there is Artaxerxes. Those are two different kings. In
Right.
Ezra, he calls Artaxerxes. So and
Oh, yeah,
he called
that's true.
Ahasuerus as well. So
Yeah, but I'm thinking when we look at the actual historical people, which one
Yeah.
they were referring
no,
to.
there is
I don't think
Xerxes
it-
and
I don't-
Artaxerxes as well.
Yeah, I know
Yeah,
that. I'm just wondering. I think it's not clear if Ahasuerus is the character in Esther is based off the historical Xerxes or
Yeah,
not.
I mean,
He's
I think I
identified
noted
with
this in
him because
Commentaries.
it makes sense in the lineup, but I don't think
Yeah.
it necessarily was based on him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep. Mikey's Girl 2105 says, does the Bible ever describe Jesus having anything close to a classic nuclear family? Well, according to Tomer, the Bible doesn't ever describe Jesus.
Yeah.
According to Tomer's version of what the Bible is. Yeah.
Hey.
The Hebrew Bible doesn't mention Jesus. It
Well,
mentions two characters with a similar name,
Yeah.
one with the same name and one with a similar name, and that's it, pretty much.
Yeah.
In the New
And-
Testament, there are two different nativity stories that are not even slightly related. They basically, the only places they overlap is where they copy the same prophecies, and mostly they don't even do that.
Sometimes they quote the wrong prophet.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, they're both quoting different sets of prophecies. I think the only overlapping one is the virgin birth thing, and David, something about the city of David. But anyway, two totally different stories. And then so there is a mom and a dad there, although technically I suppose a stepdad. And then there's a vague mention of brothers and sisters who bring his mom to try and like get him committed because they think he's acting cray. And then he disavows them and says, my disciples are my family. And yeah, the rest of it is just oblique references to Jesus's mom. Because, the Catholics want to keep that in because she's kind of an important character in there.
Well, they
Yeah.
At that
mentioned,
point, Joseph just doesn't matter. It's like, fuck that guy.
Yeah. Well, how hard was it for him to be that stepfather? I mean, you can't tell me what to do. You're not my dad. I am.
am I remembering this incorrectly? Isn't there a genealogy of Jesus that has Joseph as his father?
Both of them.
Yeah.
Both of them in writing have Joseph as his father, although in one of them it says it was supposed of Joseph. But they are not the same genealogy either. Matthew just made that shit up.
Yeah,
trying
they
to
use
do
different
numerology
lines.
shit.
Is it they
and
both
used-
have Joseph, but
the
different
list-
grandfathers?
Yeah, Joseph has two different dads. The apologetic
Well,
is
that
that
was
the one in
progressive
Luke is
for
for
the time.
Mary. Yeah.
Here, just to be clear, here's what it says, at least in Matthew. So Jacob begat Joseph, the husband of Mary, the one said to be a Christ. Jesus was begotten from her.
I think I think I've went to the future because now we're talking about the New Testament.
Yes, so we are, because this is where all roads in the Bible lead. All roads
did I
lead
read?
to
Did
Rome,
I write
and
the
all
commentary,
roads lead
Matthew?
to Jesus.
Yeah.
All right, yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
there's
so
no real good nuclear family stuff in the New Testament. It's interesting.
Well, he does frequently talk about the nuclear family and how you should abandon your nuclear family to follow the cult, just like every other psychotic cult leader in the history of ever. So, huzzah, family values.
He also seems to promote marriage while not partaking, which is
He
very
hates on divorce.
Christian.
But
Yeah,
also,
he was really against divorce. So if you're a Christian, if you're a true Christian, the only reason you can get divorced ever is sexual
Yeah,
indiscretion.
seems to be it.
Yeah, and then once that happens, you're celibate the rest of your life. You can never get married again. You can never lust after a woman again. You can never nothing. That's
well,
Jesus' rule. So everybody that got married again, you're all living in sin.
good. Actually, I'm not getting married, but I will desecrate the host if anyone wants to join me.
All right. And Tomer.
Yes.
Yep,
I'll start with verse 1.
Thank you.
According to 2 Kings 23:30, the people of the land, in Hebrew Haaretz, anointed Jehoahaz. Japhet suggested that either the chronicler wanted to avoid the consequences of anointment by non-priests, or that he refused to attribute an anointment to a king whose reign was so short, ending in exile. Septuagint retains the king's reading. This is favored by Klein, who takes the Masoretic text reading to be a case of haplography. On verse 2, the theological evaluation of Jehoahaz, given in 2 Kings 23:32, is absent from Chronicles. The only other case in Chronicles where a theological evaluation is missing is for Abiah in 13:1 and 2, but it is unclear that the chronicler evaluated him positively. Klein writes that either the evaluation was omitted by accident, according to Japhet, or that the chronicler thought that Jehoahaz's 3-month reign was too short to deserve an evaluation, also Levin. He notes, however, that the latter reason did not prevent him from giving an evaluation for Jehoiachin in verse 9. On verse 3, the Chronicles account abbreviates the account in 2 Kings 23:11, which states that Pharaoh Necho imprisoned Jehoahaz in Riblah in the region of Hamath to keep him from reigning in Jerusalem. The Chronicles reading, "The king of Egypt deposed him in Jerusalem," is difficult and probably should follow Kings Mimeloch beYerushalayim. Likewise, 1 Esdras 1:33 reads, "The king of Egypt deposed him so that he was no longer king in Jerusalem." On verse 4, Klein comments, quote, "The chronicler brought this verse over from 2 Kings 23:34, with some changes. Kings identified Eliakim as a son of Josiah, giving him some legitimacy. In Chronicles, he is only called Jehoahaz's brother, which also makes him a son of Josiah. In fact, Jehoiakim was only a half-brother to Jehoahaz, since they had different mothers, with Zebidah being the mother of Jehoiakim, as was in 2 Kings 23:36. And Chamutal being the mother of Jehoahaz in 2 Kings 23:31. Necho installed a king whom he trusted, and Eliakim/Jehoiakim was pro-Egypt throughout his reign. The chronicler adds the identification of Jehoiakim's realm as Judah and Jerusalem. At the time of Josiah, Judah and Jerusalem were only part of his realm. Necho gives him a throne name in which the divine name El is replaced by the divine name Yahweh. Instead of Jehoiahaz coming to Egypt, as in Kings, as was in 2 Kings 23:34, Necho brought him there. The chronicler omits the clause from the Forlage, "and he died there," although that sentence is included in the major plus from Kings in Chronicles Septuagint. The chronicler does not report the death of any of the last 4 kings of Judah. As Japhet notes, once a king leaves the borders of Israel, he is no longer interesting to the chronicler.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm sorry.
So what verse did you just do?
4.
Okay.
That's verse 4 talking about Jehoiakim, right? You know what? I'll do there is an interesting section about the perception of Jehoiakim in a French's commentary, but I'll get to that after 5 through 8. So Levin notes that the chronicler's account of Jehoiakim's reign is significantly different from the account in Kings. The sins of Manasseh are not mentioned, nor are the various bands that were sent against Judah. Instead, the Babylonian king himself came and bound Jehoiakim, quote, to take him to Babylon, end quote, as we see in verse 6. Nebuchadnezzar also took some of the vessels of the temple to display in his own temple. While there is no reference to Jehoiakim's death and burial, the inference is that both occurred in Babylon. He further writes, quote, the differences between these two accounts of Jehoiakim's fate are significant and seemingly contradictory. Williamson, Keel, and Dillard attempt to harmonize by claiming that the text does not actually say that Jehoiakim was taken to Babylon, only that Nebuchadnezzar intended to do so, and perhaps did not, with just the threat being enough to cower him into submission. They also raise the possibility of a temporary exile from which Jehoiakim returned, as had been Manasseh. From a literary point of view, the connection with the arrest of Manasseh in 3311 is clear, even if the historical circumstances are not. Williamson also suggests that the chronicler misunderstood his source. Japhet disagrees, quote, the unavoidable conclusion seems to be that 2 Kings 24, 1-6, and the chronicler's view are not complementary, but deliberately exclusive, expressing alternative views of the fortunes of king and land at that time.
I suppose with post hoc rationalization, anything can be considered a good or bad thing from the perspective of whatever your theological point of view is.
I should note that the sages, according to French, the sages of the Babylonian Talmud also understood Chronicles to signal that the damning evidence was corporeal. Rabbi Yochanan stated that Jehoiakim had tattooed the name of a pagan deity on his penis. Whereas, yeah.
Rock out, man.
Damn,
Yeah.
that's metal as
With your
fuck.
cock out.
Yeah. Whereas Rabbi Eliezer claimed it was the name of heaven, as we see in Talmud Sanhedrin 103b. Other midrashim and the Jewish medieval commentator Pseudo Rashi also took this verse to mean Jehoiakim had engaged in some form of self-mutilation, as we see in Talchumah Yelamdenu 320, Agadat Bereshit 49, and Pseudo Rashi in verse 8.
So the one who said that he was the name of heaven, which would be one of the names of God, I guess. There is like a story about like not necessarily Jesus, but like a Jesus character who went to Egypt to learn magic and stuff, and he like went into the temple and wrote God's name on his foot, like etched it out on his foot, and then he was able to like fly. So I wonder if
that was one of the things I heard a Jewish person saying was how Jesus got his magic powers, like the Jesus of the Bible. That
there's a story in the Talmud about a Jesus that did this, but the dates don't line up. So yeah.
No, none of these things ever line up.
Yeah, so there are religious Jewish people that think that all the stories in the Talmud about Jesus are about Jesus of Nazareth.
That Jesus.
So I was wondering if that's what the name of God can do when it is engraved into your skin. Do you think Jehoiakim was like literally helicoptering? Like
woo! Have some respect for the craft. Oh my gosh. That would be so you're thinking like Tails, but opposite, or it's Sonic. Oh god. Okay, that is fucking hilarious. I mean, in the mythos, Lilith, flew out of paradise because Adam was being a whiny little bitch by speaking the name of God and getting the ability to fly, as one does. The idea that Jesus, because there was some sort of magic that would make you forget the name as soon as you left the sanctuary, so he like snuck it out on a bracelet or carving it into his leg or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, basically he got the name outside where he could read it and then be like, "Ha!" You know,
because everyone forgets it magically when they leave, so he wrote it down.
There's like there's a memory wiping magic on the doorways for that. But that's definitely one of the mythos magic powers I mean, I did get a tattoo of my goddess, but that was my cat's paws. So.
Okay, so on verse 9, Jehoiachin was 18 years old. Masoretic text of Chronicles has Jehoiachin at 8 years old when he became king, a reading attested in Vaticanus, Vulgate, and Targum. 2 Kings 24:8 has Jehoiachin rule at age 18, in Hebrew Shmona Esre. This meaning is attested in Septuagint, Peshitta, 1 Hebrew manuscript, Kennicott 525, and 1st Esdras 141. Kimchi suggested that Jehoiakim his father, designated him to be king in the first year of his own reign, to reign after him in his place. It was then that he was 8 years old when It was then that he was 8 years old, but when he took over for his father as king, he was 18 years old. Levin, however, writes that almost all modern commentators take the king's reading to be the correct figure, and that Esre, 10, was omitted from Chronicles, and transferred by a scribal error to after the 3 months with the word Yamim, days, then added as a hyper-correction, quote-unquote, according to Japhet. Although both Septuagint and 1st Esdras preserve both 18 years and 3 months and 10 years.
10 days.
10 days, sorry.
Yeah. So I was wondering if maybe, because like in the original, like in Kings, he's 18 when he becomes king, but his father was 25.
Yeah.
So how old was his father when he was born?
He was 25, then he was 17?
He was 25 when he became king, and he
25.
reigned for...
Yeah,
oh no, he
around
reigned
17.
for 11 years, so it's enough time, actually. Yeah.
Okay,
but
so I don't have any...
I was thinking... Yeah. But the problem is that if he's only 8, the second part of the verse doesn't make too much sense, right? Because it says he did evil in the eyes of God. And...
yeah, like
if he
what
was 8
evil
years
is an
old,
8-year-old going to be considered responsible for?
And he was only king for 3 months and 10 days or whatever.
Yeah. Josiah is, I mean, there's the Josiah and then the Joash story that it seems to have been largely taken from. The Joash seems to be the older and original kid king raised by priests, brought out in like a and basically the priests are ruling in situ, just with the get the king to sign off on whatever he can write at that age. But yeah, it's a little bit glitchy. All of these things have been subject to so many theologically based revisions that
I mean, I think 18 makes sense. I mean, especially with like what Tom was saying about there's an extra word here, and then in Kings it says 18, so it makes sense that the Chronicle just made a mistake.
Yeah.
Right. This guy, this last king, Jehoiachin, he's mentioned by Nebuchadnezzar because when taken to Babylonia, he was kept in the southern palace, and so there is text from the palace records of the rations given to him. He's called Ya'ukin, Sar Ya'udaya, Ya'ukin, the king of the Judeans.
Okay.
On the last king, anyway.
So he was the guest of Nebuchadnezzar.
Yeah, but he's mentioned, but his brothers are not. We don't seem to have any other evidence. I wonder if maybe, this bit that says Nebuchadnezzar came and took away the older brother and made the second brother king after him. Maybe it should be the other way around or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, just checking something. Okay. On verse 10, the Chronicle describes Jehoiachin's reign in a single verse, in contrast to the account in 2 Kings 24, which records his account through verses 10 through 17. Japhet notes that the drastic abbreviation of Jehoiachin's story results in a new perspective on the destruction. According to D.H., the days of Jehoiachin witness the days of Joachim witnessed the penultimate stage before the final destruction of Jerusalem, including Nebuchadnezzar's march against Jerusalem, the siege of the city, the deportation of Jehoiachin, his family and entourage, the spoiling of the treasuries, etc. This is all omitted in Chronicles, and instead has one laconic sentence, according to which Nebuchadnezzar did not come to the city, but sent for Jehoiachin and brought him to Babylon. The king was exiled alone, without his family, entourage, or the men of Judah. Boda suggested that either the chronicler wished to focus his account on the exile of each of the kings to foreign lands and the fate of the temple treasures for each of the last 3 kings, or that the chronicler was seeking to make the Babylonian attack under Zedekiah the most devastating of all, possibly because it traced the lineage of the line of David through Jehoiachin and not Zedekiah.
Yeah, the Hebrew text says that he's his brother, but I think it's understood to be his father's brother or uncle. Yeah.
Either way, I'm guessing someone had to do some of the administrative tasks. So.
Yeah. Also, someone mentioned that Zedekiah sounds like a priestly name. I think it says somewhere else that Nebuchadnezzar changed his name from Matanyahu to Zedekiah.
Yeah, I think it's Kings, I believe. I mean, 2 Kings 24:17. Okay, so on verse 12, he did not humble himself before Jeremiah the prophet who spoke the word of the Lord. Klein notes that humbling oneself is a virtue leading to answered prayer, according to 7:14. Disobeying a prophetic word is disobedience to Yahweh himself. According to 1 Ezra 1:26, Josiah was defeated because he did not heed the words of Jeremiah. The chronicler probably took reference from the account in the book of Jeremiah, in which the prophet urged the king to submit to the Babylonians, but Hezekiah took the advice of his hawks, quote-unquote, and rebelled. Jonker notes that Zedekiah does not get a similar harsh treatment in the book of Jeremiah. He quotes from Hellman Joseph Stipp, quote, "The verdict pronounced by the writers of Chronicles typifies an advanced stage of a concept that took shape over a long period of time. Stages of this process are attested in the book of Jeremiah itself, where we encounter a remarkable variety of attitudes towards this last Davidic king." I also found, there is, French again notes that the author of Pesikta Rabbati interpreted Chronicles report that Nebuchadnezzar made Zedekiah swear by God, in verse 13, to mean that Zedekiah initially tried to swear on something else, and something less, his own soul. The Babylonian king insisted, however, that Zedekiah swear by nothing but the Torah. The Judean king then did so with a Torah scroll upon his knees. Zedekiah's swift breaking of that vow resulted in utter calamity. The Babylonians attacked, and Zedekiah and his sons were caught as they attempted to escape through a tunnel. When they were brought before Nebuchadnezzar, the Babylonian king claimed that Zedekiah deserved the death penalty for falsely swearing in God's name. Zedekiah then begged that he die first in order not to see the shedding of his son's blood. At the same time, his sons pleaded to perish first. In response, Nebuchadnezzar slew the sons and then blinded Zedekiah, as we see in Pesikta Rabbati 26. In this exegesis of Chronicles, Zedekiah's violation of his oath became part and parcel of his rebellion against God and led not only to the exile but also to the murder of his children.
It's interesting how much they add to the story to really drive home the dramatic element that is really, really just entirely glossed over here. We have 3 paragraphs covering the whole event. Look at the danger noodle. Who's this? What's your name, sweetie?
This is Chernobog.
Chernobog. Oh, you're very cute. Yes, you are.
Russian rat snake.
Okay, so on verse 13 and 14, Levin notes that for the chronicler, Zedekiah's rebellion against Nebuchadnezzar was a rebellion against God. This view is enforced by the fact that not only the king, but, quote, all the officers of the priests and the people, end quote, were collectively guilty, and how God, in his compassion, had sent multiple messengers, but they were mocked. He notes that Becking pointed out that verse 14 is the only reference in Chronicles to priests being unfaithful. Quote, Judah is now empty of its God, since king and priests had forced Yahweh to take sides with the Babylonian enemy, end quote.
You forced me to beat you. I keep beating you and you don't love me. What's wrong with you?
I've heard that once. On verses 15 and 16, Dillard comments, quote, the prophets and messengers spoken of in verses 15 and 16 probably refer to more than those who were active only in the last decade before the exile. The author appears to be speaking of the entire prophetic succession, though this is not unambiguously clear. The role of the prophets in Chronicles is primarily that of guardians of the theocracy. They are the bearers of the word of God to kings, who are in turn blessed or judged within a short time in terms of their response. Here, however, the chronicler describes the guilt of Israel as cumulative. Rather than each generation or king experiencing weal or woe in terms of its own actions, there is a cumulative weight of guilt which ultimately irretrievably provokes the wrath of God and brings the great exile.
It took me a minute to figure out what you were saying. What does cumulative mean?
Cumulative?
What?
Cumulative.
It's cumulative. Oh,
Cumulative means like added together.
Cumulative.
It doesn't matter, guys.
Cumulative, whatever. Fuck English.
Cumulative is the way we usually hear it.
Yes, that is the correct way.
You know what? I spoke French there. I spoke French. Fuck it. On verse 17, the king of the Chaldeans. This is a reference to Nebuchadnezzar, and it is the only mention of the Chaldeans in Chronicles. Levin writes that the Chaldeans were a group of Aramaic-speaking tribes that moved from northern Syria into southern Mesopotamia during the early first millennium BCE, and eventually became the rulers of the Neo-Babylonian Empire that rebelled against Assyria and then took over the Levant. They are frequently mentioned in 2 Kings, Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel, in which Chaldeans is synonymous with Babylonians. Japhet writes that the title King of the Chaldeans is in reference to 2 Kings 24-25, and already demonstrates the chronicler's stylistic approaches. And Klein comments, quote, the Vorlage does not mention the killing of people in the temple, but it does report the capture of Seraiah, the chief priest, Zephaniah, the second priest, and 3 keepers of the threshold, as was in 2 Kings 25:18, aka Jeremiah 52:24. These killings in the sanctuary are retribution for the pollution of the temple in verse 14. The ruthlessness and thoroughness of the Chaldean attack are indicated by its involving the young of both genders, plus old people and decrepit people, probably Ahendides. Such thoroughness in killing beginning at the temple is attested also in Ezekiel 9:5-7. The Chaldean king did not spare or show compassion. All is mentioned in the last clause and 4 more times in the next 2 verses, signaling the thoroughness of the attack. The subject of the last verb, gave, is Yahweh. While the agent of the destruction was the king of the Chaldeans, its true author was Yahweh. Although verse 17 states that Yahweh gave them all into the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, we should not imagine that all Judeans were killed, as archaeology has also demonstrated. There is ample evidence of destruction in Jerusalem, Tel Bet Milsim, Lachish, Ramat Rachel, and other sites, but settlements north of Jerusalem and in the tribal region of Benjamin were hardly affected at all. Nebuchadnezzar badly needed the economic resources of Judah, so it would not make sense for him to make it an empty land.
No, it would not. Wars of, invasion and wars that are just about plain old greed are still shitty, but often less brutal than wars for sacred reasons, because you don't feel the need to murder everyone and salt the earth if you actually want the resources.
On verse 18, Japhet comments, quote, The spoiling of Jerusalem begins with the most precious vessels of the temple and also includes its treasuries and those of the king and his officials. The reference to the vessels is an extremely concise summary of 2 Kings 25:13-17. The two other paragraphs are almost a literal citation of 2 Kings 24:13. The chronicler adds the treasuries of his princes, in Hebrew sarav, to those of the temple and the palace. The princes have thus been included in both the list of transgressors in verse 14, and those who suffer the hand of punishment. We have often noticed how the chronicler's democratizing inclination does not leave the king in his splendid isolation. Even in unexpected contexts and with minute alterations of the sources, he is joined by his princes. On verse 20, he carried into exile to Babylon the remnant who escaped from the sword. Klein notes that Chronicles' complete depopulation of at least Jerusalem has led to a concept known as the myth of the empty land. Citing Hans M. Ballstad, he notes that there are clear indications of cultural and material continuity before and after the Babylonian invasion, and not an enormous gap. Archaeological evidence shows that the land was not totally abandoned, and those who stayed behind would take up the tasks of those who left, even if conditions were harsh and there were new supervisors. Japhet argues that the attack in Chronicles fell on Jerusalem alone, with no hint of any damage to Judah and its people, and that the myth of the empty land is a misreading of Chronicles. Klein, however, notes that in the next verse, the whole land kept the Sabbath for the entirety of the exile, which implies that no work took place in the land, and thus there were no workers there. Levin notes that in Faust's opinion, the extent of Judah's destruction, as seen in the archaeological record, indicates that a major cultural break occurred during the first decades of the 6th century BCE, leaving the few who remain to subsist in post-collapse conditions. In his view, quote, "The archaeological evidence of the destruction and exile of Judah cannot be denied." On verse 21, the land enjoyed its Sabbath rest. Klein notes that the chronicler alludes to Leviticus 26, which claims that the land will pay back its Sabbath years as long as it lies desolate, in Hebrew hashama or hasama, in Leviticus 26:34, and that the land will be deserted by the people and pay back its Sabbath years by lying desolate without people, while the people themselves make amends for their iniquity, in Leviticus 26:43. He writes that the chronicler changes the tense from the future in Leviticus to the past and fuses this concept from Leviticus with the 70-year prophecy of Jeremiah. On that same verse, until the 70 years were completed in fulfillment of the word of the Lord spoken by Jeremiah. Jeremiah's 70-year prophecy is in reference to Jeremiah 25:11 and 12, 27:7, and 29:10. Later writers, as we've seen in Zechariah 1:12, 7:5, Daniel 9:2, and Ezra 1:1, understood Jeremiah's prophecy literally, but it is unclear if this refers to 605 through 535 BCE, from the beginning of the servitude of Judah to Babylon, to the conquest of Babylon by Cyrus, actually in 539, or to 586 through 516, from the destruction of the temple to the dedication of the second temple, or to some other dates that may have had great significance at the time. It could be, however, that Jeremiah's 70-year period was not intended to be taken literally. Dillard notes that Daniel 9:24 through 27 also uses the 70-year figure as symbolic of a larger time period, which also do not have clear reference. Levin notes Mackenzie's opinion that the chronicler reference
was correct.
You know, the E is between the F and the R, which makes you think that it's fair, but no, it's fur.
No, sweetie. It's
yes, please,
three languages in a trench coat punching each
Yes.
other.
Yes.
Also,
yes.
lots of silent vowels in the middle, especially E.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I said. Fuck English. So Levin notes Mackenzie's opinion that the chronicler did not have any specific dates in mind, but simply thought of 70 as, quote, a symbolic number that indicates an extended, multi-generational period of time that fully compensates for Judah's sin, end quote. Indeed, 70 years is a common typological number in the Bible, as we see in Genesis 46:27, 50:30, Deuteronomy 10:22, and Judges 1:7. And in ancient Near Eastern sources, like Esarhaddon declaring that Marduk will punish Babylon for 70 years. Moreover, quote, since the Sabbath was the seventh day, the duration of 70 years also plays on the metaphor of the exile as a Sabbath period, end quote. Likewise, Dillard writes that the 70-year period should be taken as symbolic of an indefinite period.
It's a magical symbolic number, and it's certainly not the first time we've run into those. But yeah, it's what I find more disturbing here, knowing what's coming, is the myth of the empty land. Like, yeah, okay, they took all the educated people in Jerusalem, maybe even everyone in Jerusalem, but this myth of the empty land and that all the people were taken into exile, it's very elitist, and it gives them a justification to, when they return to the land, then cast out the people who were there the whole time they were gone, who then, become isolated, become the Samaritans, and they accuse them of having married idolaters, but evidence seems to indicate they were practicing the Jewish religion as best they could without a temple in perhaps a more authentic and indigenous form. And so the people who then became the Jews after, the return from exile, they abandoned their own ancestral people who had actually remained there to, farm the land and do all the other things. And it's and they're really shitty about it. But we'll get into that in the next book.
Yeah. And finally, on the last comment for the Chronicles, 22 and 23, Japhet comments, quote, the book concludes in the way it began, the citation of an existing source, Ezra 1:1-3a, and the beginning of a new era. This is indeed the only case in Chronicles in which the Lord's title is the one common in texts of the Persian period, the God of Heaven, an epithet never used by the chronicler himself. The final passage of the book is both the continuation and the reversal of what went before. Verses 17-21 recorded the calamity of Jerusalem around two major pivots, destruction of temple and city, and exile. Verses 22 and 23 are a reversal of both, citing Cyrus' message that, quote, the Lord has charged me to build him a house at Jerusalem. Whoever is among you, let him go up, end quote. This reversal of historical fortunes is also expressed by close affinity of literary detail. In the same way that the destruction was brought about by a foreign king, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, so its reversal is initiated by a foreign king, the successor to world power, Cyrus, the king of Persia. The work of these world powers is part of the divine plan in the history of Israel. He brought up against them the king of the Chaldeans, in verse 17, and he stirred up the king of Cyrus, king of Persia, in verse 22. As the catastrophe came to fulfill the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah, in verse 21, so the revival comes, that the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah be accomplished, in verse 22. We find here a salient feature of the chronicler's historiography, viewing the course of history as moving in extremes of thesis and antithesis, in a constant swing of the historical pendulum. The Edict of Cyrus is the beginning of a new era in the history of Israel, pointing with hope and confidence toward the future. There, I'm done.
And thank you very much for that, Tomer. Do we have any closing comments on Chronicles?
I do, however, this book, I don't need it anymore. But I do, I thought I didn't have any ancient questions, but I found in French's commentaries at least two. Regarding Jehoiakim. So the Christian exegete Rabanus Maurus noted that the Jews of his day believed Jehoiakim had made profane marks on his body. Stephen Langton offered further elaboration, saying that the marks were in fact letters that spelled out Kodonazor, the name of the idol that Jehoiakim worshipped.
It's interesting that you mentioned those two names. So Stephen Langton, Archbishop of Canterbury. He's the guy that a lot of people attribute the like first time we get verses, like verse numbers and stuff like that.
I think.
But that's not actually true. So I have a video on it. Go watch that.
Yeah, there is a commentary by Stephen Langton on the Chronicles. So.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to let the fun story lie for common discourse purposes. I mean, you know, the whole story about St. Nicholas punching Athanasius in the face never happened.
Arius.
Or Arius, sorry. Because Arius wasn't a bishop, so would not have been at the council, yada, yada, yada. It's still a fun story. Although less fun when, what's his name, is making a bad Christmas movie out of it.
Yeah.
Kirk Cameron.
Yeah, that guy sucks.
He does suck.
Yes.
All right. Is there anything else?
Yeah, absolutely. Go to the Discord that I'm sure, because Peter is so kind, will leave a link to.
Yeah, Tomer's.
We are doing a rebrand shortly.
Yeah.
A rebrand?
Sellout.
From
sell out for what? Fucking I'm pretty sure
from Milwaukee
Gentleman.
Atheist to Tomer's Discord.
No, bullshit. Fuck you.
I thought we were good on the Chronicles fan club.
No, my ass. It's gonna be my ass fan club. No, we're
I think my ass
gonna
is better.
change the channel name, I think, to Behold. And it's still gonna be the same content, but it's just gonna be called Behold. Gonna do a bit of a revamp to the Patreon as well. Stay tuned
So
for
that
that.
I'm gonna have to pay more.
Keep it.
No.
So that you can keep it if you ever move out of Milwaukee.
Well, that too. But no, we're actually gonna make a lot of the tiers cheaper too, and
cool.
change up a few things. So
That's very nice.
Yeah, the channel can be Behold, the Discord can be, and it came to pass.
I love it. Oh my god, I love it so much.
What?
All right.
People saying play that tune. I can't play that tune. I've already played it once.
Okay.
That's the rule. That's the rule.
there's no rule. You just made that up.
I can play. I can play my own songs.
Children, the
I-
book
Time to say
never
goodbye,
ends,
Tomer.
ended. I'm very happy about this. Let's
Tomer.
enjoy it.
Tomer, since
That-
Arn is a fan of Monty Python, we can end on something different.
A man with three noses.
No. Oh shit. No. Wrong button. There. Here we go.
And now for something completely different.
Guess who's talking about Jesus? Jesus. Guess talk about Jesus. It's Lawrence.